welcome back to another vlog. If you're new here, my name is Hazel McBride. I am a Scottish fantasy romance author and I am currently home in my childhood bedroom because I'm on a book tour. The book comes out tomorrow as I'm filming this. As you're watching it, it will have come out a few weeks ago. So if you have just found me and it sounds interesting because of what you see in this video, you can go pick it up the next time you're in a bookstore. I'm very excited today because we are heading through to Edinburgh. My husband Paul is coming with me. He hasn't been in Edinburgh since 2017, so it's been a little while. I don't think we're going to see much of the city. One, it is pouring with rain today, so neither of us really feels like walking much. And two, I am very, very busy. We have a stock signing at Rare Birds Books at 2 p.m. We have another stock signing at 4 p.m. at Toppings and Company. I then have to go to Book Lovers Bookshop at 5:30 p.m. to sign some of their stock because they did a wonderful pre-order campaign. And then we have an event with Book Lovers at the Lady and the Bear Cafe that starts at 6:30. So we're going to be very, very, very busy, but I am so looking forward to it. If you watched my proof drop vlog where I was in Edinburgh in March, I went around to all of those stores, I met the staff, I kind of pitched them the book and told them about it, and Toppings and Rare Birds liked it so much that they wanted me to come in and do a signing prior to publication tomorrow. So I am so excited. We did have a bit of a debacle with pre-orders. If you've been watching these vlogs, you will already know, but a warehouse error sent out 700 pre-orders too early, and there's been books in Waterstones for a few days now, so none of them have counted towards the bestseller list. But from today, it counts. So every single sale from midnight last night, so as soon as the shops open today, counts to get me on the bestseller list. So obviously that list is published this Sunday, so I will be eagerly awaiting a phone call. We are definitely crossing our fingers for it. It's still not out of the realm of possibility. It would have been much more of a shoo-in if we had still been able to count those 700 copies, but we're crossing our fingers that these signings and the events and everything are going to make a difference. So I guess by the time you guys are watching this, we'll already know, which is kind of scary and exciting. But yeah, we have an hour and 20-ish minutes to drive until we get to Rare Birds, so we're gonna get on the road. Please ignore the majority of the clutter and my childhood teddy, but I am wearing my Son de Fleur dress. It has pockets. I love it. Usually I wear it with a black belt, but I couldn't find my belt. But it's quite nice. It's got long sleeves, so it's nice and warm for today, and it's long enough that I think the wind won't be a problem. And of course it's tartan, so I had to be wearing tartan, but I am actually changing my dress tonight. You might have seen me wear this already at the axe throwing influencer event, so wearing this during the day, and then I actually have a red tartan dress that I am going to change into for the event. But I'm going to stop yammering on. Oh, I actually need to show you what my mum got me for publication because it was very sweet of her. So this is what I came home to yesterday. My mum has bought me the most beautiful bunch of flowers. Obviously purple is my favourite colour, but I think this is more to do with the colour of the book. And we've got some thistles in there because obviously A Fate Forged in Fire is very Scottish inspired. And then she's also put like little dragons in it, which is so cute. And then a nice little handwritten note, and I appreciate it so much. The next vlog you guys are going to see is going to be Glasgow tomorrow. I have like my official kind of launch at the Drygate Brewery, and we're going for a family dinner prior. So my mum went to Costco and got a Costco cake, so I thought that was so sweet of her. And while we're in Edinburgh, Whiskey's going to be spending the day with my mum and my mum's best friend's dog Hattie. They have a little Maltese, so I think they're going to have a nice day together. Are you looking forward to Edinburgh? Yeah? Do you remember much from the last time you went?
Very steep.
It is very steep. There's a lot of hills, but we're going to mostly be driving today. But we did the underground ghost tour, remember?
Was it in Edinburgh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
And we did the castle.
I thought it was in Glasgow.
No, that was in Edinburgh. And we did the castle and the Royal Mile and stuff. But you haven't been back. Haven't been back since.
No.
Just arrived in Edinburgh, and I actually don't think we could have got any closer to Rare Birds Books. We were parked right outside. Paul's done a great job. We are half an hour early, so, and they have a lot of customers, so I don't want to go in and be like, hey, I'm 30 minutes early, can you help? So we're actually going to go into Books and Cup, which if you watched my Edinburgh vlog, I'll link it below, when I was here with my friend Dana, we were also early to Rare Birds again, and we went in there and it was really cute. So I think we're going to go in again. It looks a bit busier. Maybe have a little coffee, get ourselves situated, and then do a little stock signing. It's not going to be a big stock signing. It's not going to be like Goldsborough or anything. I don't even know how many copies they've ordered. But we're going to have a little chat, a little look around the bookstore, sign the books, and just have a good time. Everyone is going to think I'm such a tourist because I'm wearing tartan. They're going to be like, there goes that tourist wearing tartan. I'm like, no, I'm from here, I promise.
You literally live in another country.
Yes, but I'm from here. That doesn't make me a tourist. Right, let's go in. Books and Cup. Let's sit. So fun.
Yes.
They're so lovely in that store. Like, they were lovely when I dropped the proofs off, lovely again now, and they took a picture of Paul with the tote bag. So generous as well. Like, they gave me a free tote bag, a bookmark, they gave me a proof of Spellbound,
Yeah.
and I bought Ali Hazelwood's Problematic Summer Romance because it came, well, technically it also comes out tomorrow, but counts from today. So because we're done a bit early, we're heading up to Waterstones.
Literally heading up.
Literally heading up, if you couldn't tell with how out of breath.
We're wheezy.
Got a lovely view of the castle though as you come down. It's been about 8 years since you've seen it.
8 years?
It was 2017. You were here.
Yeah.
And we did like the castle tour and everything, yeah. Same as the whistle stop tour of London that you got from the car. You're gonna get a whistle stop tour of Edinburgh.
It's all done.
It's always very hectic in that Waterstones because it's right on Princess Street, but there were copies of A Fate Fortune Fire in there. None of them were at the front on like the new fiction or the tables or anything like that, so I was a bit cheeky after I signed them and I was like, so what are the chances of them maybe being put on a table now? And she did say quite high, because they were signed, obviously they have the signed sticker on them, so I am crossing my fingers that they're going to put at least a couple out on the new fiction table, like at the front doors as you walk in. But I think otherwise they will definitely be on the first floor in their like romantasy or fantasy section. So yeah, I mean obviously I think any of the ones I signed will probably be gone by the time this vlog goes out, but I'm glad I went and I'm glad I signed them because there's not much that I can really like control as an author, but I feel like if I sign the books, the bookstore is more likely to put them out somewhere, and then I feel like a reader is more likely to find it and buy it. So if I'm here anyway, we're gonna go. But we are now in the car and we are heading to Toppings and Company They are expecting us in 30 minutes, and I'm hoping we get to sit on that lovely little aesthetic table with the view, with a little cup of coffee, and I'm very excited. Science fiction and fantasy section, complete with rolling ladder. And we have a Fate Forged in Fire on the table, right beside Danielle Jensen. This is so exciting. So it is a little bit loud in here, I don't know if you can hear me, but we finished the signing at Toppings. We did it very quickly because we were both very hungry, but we found this nice little street market place. I think it's literally called Edinburgh Street Market, just up the street. So it has like lots of different little food stall booths. So Paul has ordered a pizza and I have ordered noodles. So we're going to sit, we're going to eat that, and then we are going to get back in the car and head to Book Lovers. I need to get there for about 5:30 to sign their stock, but Toppings had a lot more stock than I thought. We were like both really surprised because Waterstones had about 10 and Rare Birds also had about 10 copies, but I don't even know how many Toppings had, like 50, 60?
How late does the event start?
6:30. 6:30, so yeah, I'm excited. I'm also excited to see how much stock Book Lovers have because they had the pre-order up. So people have been pre-ordering from Book Lovers, and then obviously they have the event, which is sold out at 55 tickets, I think. So they will have at least 55 books for me to sign because every person who comes, if they want to buy a book, they want to have it available. And they've told me to come for 5:30 because they want to give me enough time to sign it all, but I have been quite quick at signing. So I'm excited. It's going to be good. Well, Paul's pizza has arrived. It looks yummy. And this is mine. I felt like I really needed some veg, so I got the edamame and then I got udon noodles with chicken. Okay, we absolutely demolished that. That was delicious. I'm pleasantly surprised at how good that food was. I really enjoyed it. And now we are just heading in rush hour traffic to Book Lovers Bookshop. We should be there in about 10 minutes, and I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to get parking on the street. Okay, we have made it to Book Lovers. Paul has got parked pretty much right outside again, and it's free parking from 5:30 and it's currently 5:23, so we paid for 7 minutes. We could maybe have driven around the block and waited, but we don't want to risk this spot being taken. I'm getting very excited now. I can't believe we have an event in literally like an hour. This is insane. Looks so handsome. Look at that. He already sneakily got changed. I'll get changed in the store. Here we go. Book Lovers Bookshop. So this is Jean. She is going to be interviewing me for this event, and her book is The Lady of the Lake. I'm pretty sure I've already mentioned it. In,
You did tag me.
No, but even in these vlogs, because I've been mentioning like who's going to be interviewing me and stuff, and I'm 100% sure I have, but BBC's Marilyn got sacked.
Just ice. It's just
Very
ice.
loud, very loud, very loud. But we're very excited. We're very excited to
I'm
chat.
very excited to talk about
I
it.
know.
Also, Byron. More
Oh
books
my
with
God, I
Byron.
know.
Made me so happy.
Sapphic,
the opening
bye.
line. Everything.
We start as we mean to go on.
Yes, exactly.
Hazel, McBride, and Jean Menzies.
Oh my god. Oh my god, there's so many people. Hi!
Welcome. I think we all know why we're here, to chat more about the incredible A Fate Forged in Fire by Hazel McBride, which I'm assuming most people won't have read because technically it's not out until tomorrow. I've read it. It's brilliant. Don't mean to rub it in your face, but maybe a nice way to start then would be with a little sample of what people can expect.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know very much about this book, my elevator pitch is it's the Barbie movie but with dragons and it's more gay. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from the end of chapter 1. So it's where Emira, our female main character, our bi-furious queen, is walking around with her twin brother Adarian. The world is already on fire, Emira. We don't need you burning anything else down, Adarian sighed. Her only response was a ferocious glare. Adarian wiped a soot-stained hand across his face, his knuckles sporting fresh burns from the forge. It angered Emira just to see it. Not that she resented their parents for their trades, she saw the value in the skills they had both inherited, but deep down she knew they were destined for more. They deserved more than the secrets they had been forced to keep for 26 years. We moved to this stinking city from Penrith over 10 years ago. Bridget gifted me for a reason, and I will fight with flame and steel for what is rightfully mine, she said. Adarian's sapphire eyes, so different from her forest green, clouded with tiredness. Is it really worth wasting your life waiting for a birthright that might never come? He asked. Smothering her frustration, Emira elbowed her way past her brother and back out into the street. The smell of freshly baked bannocks was making her mouth water, and her boots were sure-footed across the uneven streets as she headed for the baker's. Her thin cloak, turn page, was barely enough to protect her from the winter chill gusting in through the city gate. A few people called out to Adarian as they made their way south, thanking him for repairs or inquiring about a horse to be shod. The bitterness took root in Emira's heart again. Is this truly enough for you? She muttered as her twin drew level with her. He dropped his eyes to the dirty ground. It's honest work. She was thankful that her brother could not see her eye roll. Patrick had moulded them both into skilled metal workers, but Emira had no passion for it. Instead of ridiculing her brother, she looked away from the south gate and over the battlements. Above the crumbling rooftops of the lower town, she could make out the crimson spires of Castell Lasser. The lofty turrets lurked just beyond the bridge across the loch that separated the rest of the city from the nobility who called the Castell home. Emira had never been on the other side of that bridge. She had remained confined by the high battlements of the lower town of Archlasser for 10 long years, yet she was still unwilling to leave her post. Adarian, Orla, Patrick, they all had their parts to play. Besides, Emira had no interest in exploring the rest of Chirchina on foot. As if she had willed it with her thoughts, the ground under their feet trembled, the puddles of filth rippling. People turned their faces to the clouds in both anticipation and fear. The overcast sky was suddenly brightened as the king's magnificent golden dragon rose from behind the Castell and spread his wings with an almighty roar. Colriath, the oldest of the last 3 dragons in existence. As the pewter grey sky opened and the rain clouds finally spilled over, Emira was the only one in the street who didn't shrink from the second screech the dragon loosed into the air. The rain droplets turned to steam on her cheeks as Emira gazed up at the Beoch she had coveted for years. The king has to die eventually, Adarian, she muttered, Colriath's enormous wing beats loud enough to cover their conversation as the mighty dragon flew overhead. And when he does, I will be ready to take everything I was born to be. Well, I hope you like it, because you've got it now, so.
There's no going back. No. I really like that passage that you picked because it sort of, you cover quite a few of like the key sort of themes and like plot points and elements of your fantasy world that really drew me in the first place. And one of them I felt like I had to start the conversation with because of like how timely it is. We're in the month of May, although almost out of the month of May, which very much is Bridget's month.
Yes.
We're into spring, although it's felt like summer the past few days. And if you may or may not know that this book is set in a world where there's a conflict between kind of two religions. We've got, you know, the old polytheistic religion and a more recent monotheistic religion that's kind of like bulldozed its way in a little bit, a little fair to say. And the goddesses in this sort of like matriarchal, amazing like religion are clearly taken from like Celtic mythology. You know, you've got Bridget, we've got the Cailleach, Beta, and I'm really curious to hear more about like your relationship with them, like why, where you first found yourself drawn to them, why you decided to incorporate them into the book.
Well, it was definitely matriarchy. So I was raised by a single mum and my gran, so I feel like my entire family and my childhood was just strong women. So when I started writing about this, I really approached it with the, you know, that age-old narrative when people are like, oh, it always has to be a male heir, and like you're waiting all this time for a male heir to arrive and what's going to happen. I wondered what it would be like to flip that and go, okay, what if it was always the female who had to inherit? It was always women, and it just automatically passed down that way. And then I thought, okay, well, who would they worship? Because I knew they wanted to have magic. And I thought, okay, well, it has to be goddesses. And then if you look into Celtic gods and goddesses, because there are gods as well, some of them. And if you look into like pagan worship cycles and the seasons, and it all kind of draws into the elements. So it only made sense to have these characters be blessed by female goddesses with elemental magic that would kind of cycle throughout the seasons. So yes, Bealtaine is celebrated on the 1st of May in our world and also in this world, but I kind of tied it to those who have fire magic experience a power surge on Bealtaine, and that lasts throughout the summer because that's when they're at their strongest. And then for Samhain, it's Samhain that comes after that, yeah? Put me on the spot. So Samhain comes after that, obviously we know that as Halloween. Other magic users experience power surge too. So it just felt very kind of balanced when you're thinking about like everyone's kind of sharing power and not everyone is as powerful as everyone else at the same time.
Yeah, and balance actually, now that you've used that word, really does come through in the book. And it doesn't feel like a female supremacy world. It felt like a balanced, equal world. It felt like our main character and her twin brother lived quite equal lives. I assume it was, but was that something that was quite intentional for you?
Yeah, so yes. I think when you start approaching like a matriarchy, the first question was really, okay, well, what would a matriarchy look like? Is it a utopia? Is it, you know, everyone is perfect and lovely and no one has any hatred? Like, no, you know, there's good and bad in everyone, obviously, regardless of your gender. But if you look at the animal kingdom, specifically like elephants, for example, you know, they exist in a matriarchy. You know, it's always the women who lead. They're also one of the few species in the world that have what we call a grandmothering effect. So grandmothers are the most important and intrinsic part of their society. They live well past their reproductive years, you know, 30 years sometimes more than the males of the species. And the reason for that really doesn't make sense because biologically there's no advantage to like, oh, you can't reproduce anymore, like why are you still around? But it's wisdom. So they rely so heavily on the females of the species to continue the survival of the species. So that's kind of how I started building my matriarchy was, okay, women have to lead, but they're still individuals. And again, if we look at elephants, you know, the males of the species have a really important part to play because they're bigger, they're stronger. That's just a physiological fact. So they are much more useful to the society by providing that service, shall we say. And then obviously I think we all watched the Barbie movie and we were like, oh, the Barbies are doing great and the Kens are having fun. So I think that's kind of where it came in. But yes, queerness is very celebrated, gender fluidity is very accepted. Everyone is basically allowed to live exactly as they are and accepted for themselves, and the role that they fulfill within the society is really based on their individual skills.
You know, when a book makes you realise that you haven't read something a lot before, that you hadn't thought about before, and something I thought was relatively unique about the setup is that this isn't in a fully sort of destroyed, wonderful world that's now in its sort of like dystopian fantasy era. We're sort of at that point politically where the less savoury, the less preferable sort of like strain of people who have these more problematic views are gaining more power rather than them already being completely overrun by them. And that I thought was a really interesting choice. So I wonder what motivated you to place it at that point politically.
Yeah, I think it was when I started building the world of Erisosha, that's what the entire kind of world is called. There are 5 different territories, and I'm a bit of a pantser when it comes to writing. I don't really like plotting out like chapter by chapter outlines, but because of the kind of scope of what I wanted to do, obviously, I don't know how familiar you guys are, but obviously this is the first book in a duology, but ideally there's going to be one duology per territory that you can read as standalones. And I knew that the world building had to be tight. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna like half pants my way through this and like write as I go with a general idea, the world building needs to be accurate. So I need to be able to refer back to that every single time. So I wrote a family tree that goes back 200 years.
It is in
for every family. The family tree is not in the book. It will be in book 2.
Oh, okay.
It'll be in book 2 because there's some spoilers in the there's some spoilers in the family tree, so not yet. But yeah, so when I was thinking about who came before Emira and Adarian and the characters that we're going to meet, I was looking at what was happening with regards to like different wars or battles or points in time, and I think it just fit Emira's story the best to kind of, not necessarily as a character, you have to give your character something to do. They can't just be existing in this lovely little world and then there would be no plot. So yeah, I think it just made sense when there's a territory that's been affected by a war 200 years prior that is completely overrun and is very oppressed. I then was forced with like, okay, if she's existing in a different territory but in the same time, how is her existence different to the characters over here, who we will hopefully explore in the future if we get there. Buy the book because I want to keep writing.
Yeah, exactly. The more sales, the more likely that Scotland comes through in the book. I mean, it's set in a fancy world.
It rains all the time in the book.
It's like in everything from the mention of ski and doos to the use of Gaelic to the goddesses. It's everywhere, and it's really nice. Like, I guess as a Scottish reader, to read it and just notice those little bits of home and recognise those little moments. But I imagine it's also lovely for anybody else reading it because it really builds and creates that world. And I wonder to what extent that was quite conscious or whether it happened quite unconsciously.
Oh, it was very conscious. Even to the point where we were like, we need Celtic elements on the cover, which is where obviously the dragons kind of came from. And I think like this book felt a little bit like a homecoming. I moved away from Scotland when I was 21. I'm 32 now. You can blame my Dutch husband who's sitting in the background. But I knew I wanted to pour a lot of Scotland into the book. It's not, you don't often get a lot of Scottish heritage or culture in fantasy. So yeah, we have kilt-wearing dragon riders. I do imagine that would chafe a little bit. So logistically, I don't really know how that works, but it looks good. So I have had like a few comments from advanced readers. You know, we're talking about Cayleys instead of balls, and you know, there's so many words in there that Scottish people will just get. Yeah. You'll just be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I think, you know, maybe some other readers have struggled slightly. There's definitely enough context cues, you know, to like, okay, you're going to a Cayley, and then on the next page we're like dancing and drinking and have a merry old time. So I think they'll get it. But I think it was intentional to do that. I was like, I want a Scottish person reading this to feel like they're at home.
Well, I did. I would love to talk more about the dragons.
Yes.
Big dragon fan. And one thing I love when reading any book with dragons is how every author kind of approaches dragons a little bit differently.
So obviously, again, going back to like Scottish folklore, like we have so many mythical creatures like kelpies and selkies and obviously dragons as well, which is so fun to explore. And I think when I was trying to decide which duology would come first, I just gravitated towards dragons, and like we're starting off in Tír Chine, which is Scottish Gaelic for fire, land. Technically, to be completely correct, in Scottish Gaelic it would be Tír and Chine. I don't speak Gaelic, my wonderful proofreader told me that, so I'm like, I must tell everyone. So obviously if I'm writing a main character who has the elemental magic of fire, I'm gonna make her ride a dragon, right? Like that's what we want to see. So it was very intentional to start off with dragons, but obviously there are a lot of different creatures. There are phoenixes, there are chimeras, there's firebirds. We don't necessarily see a lot of them in book 1, but we're going to see a lot more of them in book 2. So there's a lot more clans. Again, Scotland, like everyone exists in a clan, like multiple different families in one clan who have the ability to bond to different creatures. And some of them are a little bit selfish and like guard the secrets of how to bond to themselves. So like one clan will naturally gravitate towards bonding to like a chimera, and won't really tell anyone else outside how to do it without getting eaten. But they're very animalistic, the dragons. They don't speak our language. It's more of like a sharing of souls and minds, and
they share emotions, right? So
There's a bond there, and there's trust, and they have like an understanding. But the dragons are still very much their own entity with their own desires. I think Ymira at one point in the book actually says like one could never hope to control a dragon, but we do respect one another enough to listen. So there's respect on both sides because they have to choose one another.
Her birthright to become queen in this world. So she has a lot on her shoulders.
So this kind of comes back again to when I was like creating the family tree, and I started with a woman. I talk as if these characters are real, like no one knows them yet, and I'm like, so Queen Lysandria, so I started with her, and she was like at the height of like the dragon's power when there were like thousands of them, and her clan was like the ruling clan, and the crown passed from female heir to female heir. And then I thought about, okay, what if this patriarchal religion came in and people started turning away from the goddesses, and how would that affect magic? And, would there still be females born? And would there still be dragons hatched? Like, how would all of that work? And how would that cause conflict? So when we meet Ymira, there is a king on the throne, and there has been a king on the throne for the last 100 years. There have been no female heirs to the royal line in 100 years. Maybe a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to keep it vague. But Ymira exists. And she spontaneously. So she does have a claim on the throne. Yeah, so when we meet Ymira, she's very arrogant. It's like she's got blinkers on. She's seeing everything that's been going on, the matriarchy crumble, these corrupt kings, there's priests that come in that are preaching that queerness is not okay, she's bisexual, so she's like, I'm not having that. So she's very angry at the beginning, and she sees her birthright and fighting for that as a way to fix everything. So she's like, if I can just get on the throne, I can fix everything. And then she very slowly realizes that she's just not that good at it. And it's not that simple. Yeah. So, she has a lot of plans. She has plan A, B, C, D, and they all kind of start tumbling down. But I think for Ymira in particular, she idolizes a certain person a lot that we're going to meet. And he's very complex, and he's a difficult person, and he shares a lot of the same beliefs as Ymira does because, she's listened to him a lot. But as we move through book 1 and book 2, she meets different people from different walks of life, and it kind of starts to open her eyes a little bit, especially when she starts failing. And she realizes, okay, maybe like just bulldozing my way through everything is not the right way to go. Maybe I need to get into bed with the enemy and see if that works.
It's hard not to, as a reader, living today as a woman, not to draw parallels with the world that we live in. So I guess, like, to what extent does the real world that we are living in consciously sort of influence the kind of political world you created in this book? No pressure.
I mean, how deep do you want to get? Shall we keep it light? No, very much so. I think, this manuscript was written in 2023, and I think it's a real shame that a lot of those themes have only become more relevant in the last 2 years. It definitely holds a mirror up to our current society. I poured a lot of feminine rage into the pages. Early readers have said, I don't shy away from difficult topics. This is everything that is put into this book. There is a trigger warning in the front, and I really would strongly recommend everyone read it. I'm looking all of you in the eye. Read the trigger warning this. But everything that is in there is very intentional, and it was thought through, and it was written for a reason, because there's still women going through all of these things in our current world today. And my hope is that by reading about Emira overcoming those challenges and oppression and fighting back against the violence of, men, is that it will give us hope as well to be like, okay, you know what, because we are fighting against it and we are speaking up for it and fighting for ourselves and for the generations that come next. So if it can give us a little bit of hope, that's great. Obviously, a lot of kind of the patriarchal oppression in this book is coming from a patriarchal religion. I myself grew up Catholic, and I think it was born of, sitting in a pew every Sunday and being told that you need to be subservient. And I think, obedience and subservience does not come naturally to women. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to be reminded of it every week. That patriarchal religion is not a new religion. It definitely came into being a couple of centuries prior to our story, but they were busy in other territories first. So they were focusing on other things. So they're still relatively new to our, female main character, Emira.
Relevant reminder through the book, because, books can sort of comment on our real world that, things can get better, but someone can come in and slowly be working in the background, and things can get worse again, and it's this constant fight. But it's nice to see that in a fantasy book. I feel like I don't often see that kind of structure. So I did really, really appreciate that in the book.
Thank you.
You did a very good job.
Your book is so good too, Goliath, the Lady of the Lake.
Excuse me. You're talking about this book.
I very recently got an autism diagnosis, which came as no surprise to anyone in my life. And I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings when I was younger. So Tolkien was a huge influence for me, and fantasy worlds have always felt like a safe space for me, especially when the real world gets difficult and tough. You can always find that escape. Even if you're escaping to a world of war and tragedy, it's not my war, it's not my tragedy. I'm gonna go there. And then more recently, I got very obsessed with House of the Dragon. So that was a massive, that's literally what inspired me to start writing that. If looking at a succession war, and they're all about the men, and I'm like, well, what about the women? What would happen if that was the norm? Very, very influenced by, a lot of great high fantasy writers who I am very aware are often men. And I think I'm definitely not the one who coined this phrase, but I can't remember who said it. I saw it on social media, but it was when men write about war and dragons, it's epic fantasy, but when women write about war and dragons, it's dragon smut. We love some dragon smut, but let's not belittle female writers. So it's really nice to see, obviously the genre of romantasy in general kind of coming to the forefront and having its moment. And I'm not even just talking about me with this, all of the incredible romantasy, books that are stocked over at Book Lovers. It is a genre primarily written and read by women, and there's a reason for that. And I'm just really glad that we've all carved that space out in the fantasy world for ourselves. So.
And that also, so I know you've been a writer for a long time, you've been writing fan fiction, you've been writing in lots of different respects, but this is your first trad-pumped book.
It is.
So I'm curious if there's been anything about, in case there's anybody here who also wants to be a writer, which I wouldn't be surprised by, because I feel like 50% of readers are probably writers as well. We're all creating stories all the time. If there's been anything about publishing process that has surprised you, and also how it's maybe just compared to your expectations.
Yeah, so I have written since I was really, really young. There's a lot of terrible manuscripts that will remain buried in my laptop forever. And I was very bad at indie publishing, self-publishing. indie authors do not get enough credit. Like, they need to wear so many hats. Like, there's just, I mean, you can talk about this too, but you know, it requires so much more than just the writing. So I feel incredibly lucky and grateful. And you know, the book is called A Fate Forged in Fire, and I feel like so much of it is down to fate. And I don't often like saying that, you know, when people make like their dreams come true. I'm like, no, it was you. Like, you worked hard for this. Like, own it. It's great. But you know, none of this would have happened if like one person on TikTok was like, I want someone to write a fan fiction about Aemon Targaryen losing his eye, and then the girl wearing it as a necklace, and I was like, say less. So I went and wrote the fan fiction, and then my agent just happened to read that fan fiction, and then I just happened to have my email address in my TikTok bio at the time, and she emailed me and was like, are you working on anything original? And I was like, well, yes, actually, I am. Here's some chapters. And she was like, say less, sign with me. So yeah, like I know for a fact that like if those people hadn't randomly said like those things, this would not be here. I would maybe have indie published it by myself, but I don't think it would have gained this much traction. Like, I know my own limits, guys. Like, I'm just not that good. But yeah, like I give thanks to like however it managed to come about. Yeah. Like, I'm just so happy that it ended up here, but I'm also aware that if I hadn't kept writing, it wouldn't have ended up here. And I feel like so many incredible writers get put off because they compare themselves to other people, or they think, oh, I can't like write a book as good as that, or like my idea isn't strong enough. Like, just write, because no one can tell a story the way you can. Like, you can name 10 other books with dragons. You know, like even the big ones, like, okay, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, you've got Aragon, the inheritance cycle. I loved that when I was a teenager. Like, if I had said to myself, oh, dragon books have been written, I can't write about dragons because everyone's writing about dragons, like, this book wouldn't exist. And, you know, we all love certain types of media for a reason. Like, if a book has enemies to lovers, I'm like, give me it. Give me, like, grabby hands. I don't care. I do not care if it's like so similar to 16 other books that I've read. I'm like, I want the next one.
The thing is, readers will read loads of the same things. So I don't know
yeah,
why it can't be
exactly.
published.
We love it for a reason, right? We're like, this has the formula that I love. I am going to pick it up. So if you're sitting here, I don't know anyone who, you know, maybe is thinking about writing, has an idea in their head, just write. It can be one scene, it can be one chapter, it can be a short story. Just write, because the more you, and it's, I know this is really annoying advice, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, and that's just life, unfortunately. But you know, you all have your own unique voices, and I'm sure someone would love to hear it. So there's definitely, like, that's why editors exist, because they're incredible.
Very good at their jobs.
You know, even if they tell you to take things out that you're like, but why?
They're usually right.
They are usually right, unfortunately. So when you guys do finish the book and you get to the cliffhanger, don't kill me, that wasn't my idea.
That's a nice way to put it. Your editor is really smooth.
She's like, end it here, and I'm like, okay.
God, now I'm so curious where it originally ended. Did it end later or earlier?
Later.
Later.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit later.
Very excited for the next books. I have to say, I love a duology. I think that's like a really nice balance between characters, but then it's also really nice to know there might be more in the same world.
Yeah.
Once you learn about a world, returning to it is such a special feeling.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. Can we like have any details about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble because I'm such an open book.
Tom Holland spoiling all
my
the
editor is gonna be like,
shh,
no. But yeah, so we have different elemental territories within Erisosha, so we are going to explore all of them. I did, like, the entire map isn't, you can model the map. Oh wait, maybe it's better to use, because they did it as end papers in the proof. But yeah, so there are technically 5 territories. One of them has been cursed, so no one lives there, no one's been there. It's all very mysterious. So there will hopefully be 1 duology per territory. So if you just think about all 4 elements, they will be 4 standalone duologies. So, you know, readers can find them at any point. You can read them independent of one another. And then hopefully we'll have a 5th one that kind of brings it all together. And I think it'll be really nice to kind of come back to this world, because you guys don't need to learn the same, like, the magic rules again and again. Like, you know, even though I love fantasy and love reading fantasy, like, the info dumping can be a lot sometimes. And learning like a new magic system in a new world. So I hope it will be nice for readers to kind of come back to somewhere that's familiar, but explore like new themes and new characters and a new story.
Well, I know you're probably very busy then with social. Do you ever find yourself sort of distracted by other ideas?
Yes. So I indie published a YA trilogy called Ocean's Daughter. Please, no one go buy it. Don't read it. Like I've learned a lot as an author. I have learned. Oh God. Oh no. I've learned a lot as an author. Okay, that was. Thank you.
Regardless of whether you're self-published or not, that's true though. Like every author's first book changes. Like, they get better.
Yeah. I mean, like, it speaks to the whole, like, practice makes perfect, even though you can't be perfect in a creative industry. Like, you do learn a lot. So I was talking to my editor about potentially reworking Ocean's Daughter into, like, a much more kind of concentrated standalone book. And, like, changing some of the themes or making, like, the plot a little bit tighter, but keeping, like, the essence of the story. So we thought, like, Sapphic Scottish mermaids. Maybe. I'm saying that, but I'm like, this might never happen, guys. Like, this might never happen. So don't take my word for it. But yeah, I think as a writer, you always get distracted by like the next project. Like when you're in the thick of edits and you're like, I cannot read this book one more time.
I'll just write a whole other one.
Exactly. It just seems easier in the moment when you've read the same line 18 times and now it doesn't even sound like words. You're just like, oh, blank Word document. That's a really good question. So they will all reflect Scotland in some way. So you know how Scotland was like, there was the Picts at one side, the Norse, the Gaels, and then the English kind of coming in. Apologies if there's any English people in the audience. We love you really, but...
my husband's English.
It's fine, my husband's Dutch. It's fine. So each territory will kind of feel like Scotland, but in a slightly different way. Their territories are all affected in slightly different ways by this new religion that's come in as well. So yeah, they're going to have some slightly different cultural and societal norms, whether that's with regards to marriage or what they eat or the rituals that they practice or how they travel. But it will all feel somewhat like Scotland and will still be very Celtic. Yeah.
Can we get more of a Darian in book 2?
Oh.
So Dana is my in real life friend. Thanks for asking a question, love.
Did you plan that question?
No. So Adarian is Emira's twin brother, and I view him in my head as like young Jamie Fraser from Outlander. Like that's how he exists in my brain. Yes, we will get a lot more of Adarian in book 2. There was a lot more of him in book 1, but again, editors, they're like, do we need this much Adarian? And I'm like, yes. But yes, we'll get more of Adarian in book 2, and we will also get more some side characters from different clans within the world. Like I feel like book 1 is very focused on the capital city and on Emira, like we're starting to like build that story. And then in book 2, we'll kind of branch out slightly into the rest of the territory and meet some more of the clans and some more of the world.
Hang on, does that mean we're going to get multiple POVs?
No.
Oh, okay. I had like got entirely.
No, sorry.
Enemies to lovers.
Yes.
We all love that trope. Were there any other tropes that you knew you absolutely wanted to include, or ones that you wanted to maybe turn on their heads or avoid?
Oh.
I love it.
I was so ready to answer that question, then you like added that on at the end. Turn on its head. Well, one of the other tropes that I love writing that is in this book is touch her and die. I really, really like anything involving weapons. I'm like really yeah. Obviously, Emira as a female main character, she is a blacksmith, so she's very muscular. She's tall. She's 26 years old, she knows her own mind, so when she comes up against Fiorian, who's the main character, they're very, very evenly matched, and that's very obvious in a lot of their tension-filled scenes. There are multiple dagger-to-throat moments in this book. So shout out tropes. Give me an idea. Anyone, what are your favorite tropes? Anyone?
Touch him and die.
Touch him and die, oh! She would be good at that one, but I don't think she cares enough about him in the first one. I think she'd be like, kill him, please. Do me a favor, try.
Only one bed.
Only one dragon. But that's in book 2.
I find easier
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if I have the right like fantasy soundtrack playlist, like a battle scene can be written in like 20 minutes. Like I live for that. Yeah, I read very fast. I was like, autism for the win.
I make playlists. There's a playlist inside my book.
Oh my
to
god!
accompany the book.
Oh, obsessed. I do have one too. I don't think we put it in the book.
I was like adamant.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, like, I think they take different types of focus. It is romantasy. There's not like smut out the gate, if that makes sense. I think I always gravitate towards writing less than more. So there's a very like intricate political fantasy plotline weaving through it, and we do like get to the spicy scenes eventually. But I think I prefer writing tension. So we get a lot of almosts, and then we do get into it. But yeah, I've definitely had notes from my editor being like, could we have one more? Could we have one more spicy scene? And I'm like, we can have them maybe hold hands. But you can thank my editor for a certain rain scene. So when you guys read that, you can know that that's where that came from. But yeah, I think when writing, like that's why I also say, you know, to aspiring writers, sometimes you have to write scenes out of order. Because you might be really in the mood to write like a big epic battle scene, and then one day you're just feeling like the dialogue is going really well, so like, you might be better suited to write like some banter or something instead. And that's okay. Like you don't have to write it chronologically if you don't want to. Yes.
I loved the one-eyed prince. I think you had said that Prince Fiorian was sort of inspired by Eamon. So I just wonder what you think would happen if those two were to meet. Do you think that they would be friends, or?
I'm obsessed with this question. Okay, so The One-Eyed Prince was the fan fiction that I wrote that was inspired by Aemond Targaryen. Okay, Fiorian, I picture him as like Aemond Targaryen meets any and all Lucien Vansera fan art, which is where the ginger hair comes from. I feel like Fiorian is a bit more emotional, but he hides it. He's a lot more empathetic, and obviously I wrote the fanfic after season 1 of House of the Dragon, not season 2 of House of the Dragon. I want to make that clear. So yeah, I think they're definitely very distinct characters, especially when you kind of like unpack who they are on the surface. But yeah, I think Fiorian is very much a closed book. He doesn't trust very easily. He kind of keeps everything to himself and doesn't share much. But I think for him it comes oftentimes from a place of wanting to protect others. Like he really wants to protect his family. So he doesn't want to burden them with like, here's what I'm feeling and what I'm, you know, planning and trying to control and keep us all safe. And instead he's kind of like, I'm just going to deal with it. And I'm going to like look like I'm very cold and like I don't care about anyone. But in actual fact, I think he cares quite a lot. So yeah, I think he's maybe a little bit less selfish oftentimes, and maybe a little bit more mature. I think, you know, he's obviously older as well. There was a lot of lore that was taken out, and I think it was just to keep the pacing quite tight at the beginning, because obviously, like I said, I wrote like this big world building document that went back 200 years. So I think I got into the bad habit of being like, let me tell you about this person who lived, and I think my editors were like, right, let's stay with this story. Let the readers get used to these characters first.
If you could bring any character from any other fantasy world into this world, who would you bring?
Aragorn. I just think he would like knock some sense into everyone.
Bye.